Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're exploring Indian literature, looking at how society really shapes individual lives. We're doing this through a fascinating comparative study. Our mission for you today is to unpack the incredible insights from an article called From the Dark Room to Liberty, a comparative study of R.K. Narayan's The Dark Room novel and Volga's Telugu novel Swetcha. In this piece, it's really insightful. It's from the International Journal of Multidisciplinary Educational Research. The authors are Dr. T. Ashok, NOOJILLA'S Srinivas, and Y. Pani Rao.
Yeah, and what's so compelling about this specific article, I think, is how it maps out this historical journey of feminist thought in Indian literature. You really see a clear shift, from maybe subtle commentary to much more explicit advocacy. It's a really rich look at those timeless struggles for identity, for freedom, especially within the family.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this then. We should probably start with the broader context, feminist writing in India generally. Then we'll get into each novel, give you a feel for them individually, and finally kind of bring it all together. See the common threads, but also the different ways they approach things. You'll see how these books really mirror societal change.
Sounds good.
So before diving into the novels themselves, the article gives us some needed background on feminism. It notes it mainly started in Europe, right? As a campaign for women's rights, social, political, economic equality.
Exactly. And if you look at the bigger picture, the 17th and 19th centuries, that's when you see campaigns for things like property rights, getting into higher education, the vote, obviously. Then in the 20th century, the focus kind of shifts more towards equal social standing, economic opportunities, jobs, and this whole movement spreads globally, including to India.
Okay, so what did that look like in India specifically? The article points out that even before independence, some Indian writers were talking about women's problems. But often, it says, under restricted circumstances. It sounds like it took a while for feminism to become more, widely accepted, to really start pushing back against that patriarchal dominance.
Yeah. And that raises a good question the article addresses. Who are these feminist writers? It clarifies it's not just women writing, It includes male writers, too, guys who are sympathetic to women's struggles. So that broadens the picture quite a bit.
Right. That's an important distinction. Okay, let's turn to the first novel then. R.K. Narayan's The Dark Room. Narayan lived 1907 to 2001, famous for his fiction, often set in that microcosmic India, his fictional town Malgudi. His books are seen as these sort of socio-historical records, both pre- and post-independence India.
Yeah, and what's really interesting here is Narayan himself, he never actually said, I'm a feminist writer.
Yeah.
And honestly, many critics wouldn't really agree with that label for him. But this article argues pretty strongly that The Dark Room, specifically, really shows him siding with women.
Okay, so let's get into the story itself. Savitri, a middle-class housewife. Her husband, Ramani. Tell us about him. The article paints quite a picture.
Oh, absolutely. He's shown as, completely dominant, hypercritical, really self-centered. The opening scene apparently sets the tone immediately. He finds fault with everything Savitri gives him, taunts her, curses the cook. It's quite grim. And then on top of that, he starts an affair with another woman, Chantabai.
Wow. And Savitri, she doesn't just take it, does she? She confronts him.
She does, yeah. But Ramani just brushes her off, dismisses her completely. She feels totally humiliated, taken for granted. So she decides she has to leave.
And the kids, that part was quite shocking.
It really is. When she tries to take their 3 children, Ramani shouts at her, "Don't touch them or talk to them. Go yourself if you want. They are my children."
My children. Not our children. That just screams patriarchal ownership, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's stark. So Savitri is devastated. She wanders off, even tries to throw herself into a river.
Yeah.
But fear stops her. She calls for help. She gets saved by a blacksmith who, bit of an irony, is also a burglar at night. He brings his wife, Pani, and Pani actually befriends Savitri, offers her food, shelter.
But Savitri refuses charity, right? She's had enough of being dependent on men, father, brother, husband. So she tries to be independent, gets a job cleaning at a temple.
Yes, that's her attempt at self-reliance. But the article points out it's just not practical. She quickly realizes this and, she goes back home.
And Ramani's reaction?
Relief, apparently. But the article suggests it's less about her being back and more about keeping up appearances, avoiding social embarrassment. It really underscores the societal pressure she's under.
Yeah, you can feel Narayan's, the article calls it deep anguish over how she's treated. And he definitely doesn't paint Ramani in a good light. Ugly, selfish. Narayan's sympathy is clearly with Savitri. But as the article says, he's a realist. He understood the limitations of people and their context and worlds.
Exactly. And that's maybe why Savitri, even with every reason to stay away, she reconciles, she returns. It reflects the constraints of her reality at that time.
Okay, let's switch gears now. A later period, a different feel altogether. Olga's Telugu novel, Swetcha. This was written by P. Lalitha Kumari using the pen name Olga, published in 1987. And here, the intent is totally different, isn't it?
Oh, completely. Unlike Narayan, Olga wrote Swetcha with a very explicit purpose, propagating the philosophy of feminism through literature. That's a huge difference right there.
So the protagonist is Aruna, a postgraduate student. Tell us about her background.
Well, she's also from a middle-class family, but from childhood, she's controlled. Her father, her brother, they impose all these limits on her freedom. And then there's her maternal aunt, Kanakama. Lost her husband young, lives with the family, and uses her wealth, apparently, and a kind of jealous and sadistic nature to boss Aruna around, too.
So quite oppressive, and yet she manages to study.
Yeah, despite the suppression, particularly from the aunt who wanted her married off at 15, like her older sister. Aruna only gets to do her postgrad because her father couldn't actually afford her marriage dowry at the time. Otherwise, the article implies he'd have married her off sooner just to lessen his financial burden.
Wow. Okay. So she meets someone.
Right. She falls for a classmate, Chaka-san. And she wants a job, wants financial independence. They marry. But then even though she initially doesn't want kids right away, Prakasan basically pressures her into it. The article uses phrases like, obliged with his adamant nature and male chauvinism.
Doesn't sound like a great start. And he dislikes her working, too.
Hates it. He doesn't like her making her own money, her own decisions. Even though she's apparently managing home and work just fine, he gets really angry when she gets involved in things like a college strike or works for Progressive magazine or even interviews sex workers for an article.
So he wants her just at home.
Pretty much. He insists his wife's place is limited to household duties. He even threatens her, says she has to choose family or her social involvement.
That's a stark choice. What happens then? Does she realize others face this too?
Yes, that seems to be a turning point. She starts noticing other women around her, even the wife of a colleague, Kisava, who seems quite progressive on the surface. She sees they're facing similar kinds of confinement. And that's when she truly gets it, the nature of these bondages and what liberty really means.
Ah, so that's the catalyst.
Exactly. She decides she has to leave her family, not just for herself, but to dedicate her life to helping society, helping other women in need. A very different outcome from Savitri.
It really is. So these novels, different times, different styles, but they're reflecting these incredibly common problems women face. Let's try and pin down those core issues they both tackle.
Yeah, okay. One big one the article focuses on is the slow erosion of a woman's individual identity within a family. Both Narayan and Olga seem to be critiquing this sort of myth of the ideal family, showing how it often becomes a place where men just dictate the rules, especially gender roles.
Savitri is such a powerful example. Her name itself, Savitri, is symbolic, right? After this ideal, revered figure of Indian womanhood, she does everything she's supposed to, serves everyone diligently, but has zero say, can't even decide to feed the unhappy cook or let her sick kids stay home from school.
And Aruna faces the same thing, doesn't she? That lack of autonomy, even over something as fundamental as when or if she becomes a mother.
So what's the core criticism of the family system here, according to the article?
Well, it seems to break down into a few key points. First, women don't choose their roles, mother, wife. These roles are just given to them, assigned. Second, there's a complete lack of any real role for women in making decisions. And third, her identity, her personality, just gets completely erased, absorbed by these assigned roles.
That quote from Savitri when she leaves is just searing. I don't possess anything in this world. What possession can a woman call her own except her body? Everything else is her father's, her husband's, or her son's. That feeling of just being an extension of others, it's devastating.
It really is. And what's so striking, as the article points out, is that even Aruna-educated, postgraduate, employed, she faces the exact same identity problem, first as a daughter, then as a wife. It just shows how deep-rooted these societal expectations are, regardless of education or job status.
And both books show how this starts really early, right? How gender roles get hammered in from childhood. Narayan's father in the dark room telling boys they can't play with dolls, dictating how kids should behave to fit these adult gender ideas.
And Aruna experiences it too, being treated differently, criticized differently than her brother, just based on her study choices. It reinforces those separate paths.
So this is what they call socialization.
Exactly. That's the term the article uses. It's how boys and girls are sort of trained, conditioned to fit into these preset gender roles, whether they like it or not. And the family unit is key in this. It essentially reproduces society's gender roles. The article is quite critical of this. It says, the family should be fundamental for individual identity. But while the man often gets to choose his identity, the woman doesn't get that choice. The family indoctrinates kids into these roles for society.
Okay, let's move to the second big common theme. The whole issue of a woman's individualism. Both novels hit this hard.
They really do. Savitri's outburst at Ramani. I am a human being. You men will never grant us that. For you we are playthings and slaves.
That's a powerful cry for recognition as an individual, isn't it? And Aruna echoes this. She realizes her husband only loves her if she fits his mold, his wishes. She doubts if he loves her, the individual, or just, her looks and intelligence as assets.
So these situations, they're powerful commentaries on how individualism is denied. The article suggests women get reduced to commodities.
Yeah, or property, slaves, things. There's this absence of a distinct individual identity. You only exist as someone's daughter, someone's wife, someone's mother.
But Savitri does get that little taste of identity, doesn't she, when she works at the temple, earning her own food?
She does. She feels this great thrill, the article says, cooking her own rice. This is my own rice, my very own. I'm not obliged to anyone. This is nobody's charity. It really highlights the deep need for self-reliance, for earning your own way. And Narayan's metaphor, the dark room, that's quite potent. She retreats there when upset at home, and then, interestingly, she gets another dark room at the temple.
Yes. And the analysis suggests this dark room becomes, paradoxically, the only place where she's truly conscious of herself, her individual self.
Yeah.
It's a space away from the tyrannical husband, the dependent family, the crushing gender roles, a sort of mental and physical sanctuary for her identity.
Now, Aruna in Swetcha, she seems to assert her individuality much earlier, more consistently. But what's really interesting, and where it differs again from Savitri, is that her drive for individuality isn't purely personal, is it?
Not at all. She wants to work for others, poor girls, prostitutes who've suffered. There's a much broader social consciousness there right from the beginning. Her individualism is tied to activism.
So Swetcha goes much further in tackling contemporary issues.
Definitely. It addresses problems that maybe weren't as explicitly discussed in Narayan's time, or at least not in his novel. Things like restricting a girl's freedom from childhood, husbands dictating terms, opposing wives working or having opinions, women not having the freedom to choose about motherhood. Even marital rape is touched upon.
And laws favoring fathers in custody disputes.
Right. And it even brings in support for live-in relationships through Aruna's friend Uma. It's tackling a wider range of feminist concerns.
And Olga herself is quoted saying the novel questions the whole system holding women back in families, politics, movements. She wanted these common middle-class family issues recognized as social issues.
A very clear activist stance through literature.
So let's zero in on that core difference between Savitri and Aruna. It seems huge. Savitri leaves, tastes freedom, but goes back.
Right. Whereas Aruna, she fights for her individuality throughout. And when she leaves, it's final. It's with this clear determination of not returning to the marital life. She chooses a different path, entirely serving other women. Her character arc is one of continuous evolution towards her goal of freedom and identity. She achieves it.
Which leads us to Olga's definition of liberty in the novel. It's quite something. Can you remind us?
Yeah, it's powerful. This liberty is not something given by others, not achieved from anybody. Liberty is recognizing the important things necessary for our needs and identity. It is liberty for us from ourselves. It is liberty from the thoughts, opinions, and customs that have been habituated for us right from our birth. It is the liberty from the beliefs that have been ingrained in us.
Wow. Liberty from ourselves. That's profound. It's not just about escaping external control, but internal beliefs, too.
Exactly. It's about deconditioning yourself from what society has taught you to believe about yourself and your role. It's an internal revolution as much as an external one.
So putting it all together, these two novels, analyzed by Dr. Ashok, NOOJILLA'S Srinivas, and Y. Pani Rao, they really illustrate an evolution, don't they?
Clearly. You have earlier writers like Narayan, maybe hinting at women's rights, showing sympathy, but perhaps indirectly, not necessarily labeling it feminism. Then, post-1970s, you get women writers, often activists like Olga, using literature explicitly as a tool to popularize feminist philosophy, raise awareness about equal rights, social, political, economic, and focusing more intensely on individualism, even sexuality.
So what's the takeaway for us, for you listening? The article wraps up by saying literature really can be a vehicle for social transformation, and that feminist literature specifically has made a real difference in changing society. This deep dive really shows how books don't just entertain us. They reflect our world, they challenge it, and ultimately they can help shape it. So, Here's something to think about. How does understanding these different expressions of feminism in literature, the subtle, the explicit, maybe deepen your own view of cultural shifts? And perhaps what dark rooms, metaphorically speaking, might still exist in our own lives or in society that need the light of liberty, of identity? That's it for this deep dive. We hope you feel a bit more informed and definitely more curious. Until next time, keep exploring.